This is Ryan Cantor, and in this video, we're talking about Clemson's spring football camp. Before we dive in, just a reminder, please subscribe below, like this button. YouTube requires 1,000 subscribers before you can monetize the channel. So building it up slowly but surely, not that slowly. So I appreciate everyone who has subscribed. If you haven't, please do so. All right, so every year, there's a lot of hype and a lot of coach speak, both in spring and fall camp. Kind of been through this routine enough to know a little bit about how to parse through it, what to really pay attention to, and what you can pretty much discard as coach speak. So I want to talk a little bit about some of those topics. The first one is on the offensive line. It's buying the annual hype for the offensive line. It's every year. They talk about how they're better than last year. They've made big strides, and it seems completely disconnected to their performance on the field the upcoming season. The most memorable of these situations was in 2020. That was an extreme, they were extremely hyped coming into the year. We really thought they were going to make a lot of progress. There was a lot of talk about it, and then they couldn't run block very well at all. Travis Etienne's yards per carry dropped by about 2 yards per carry that season, and he certainly didn't become a worse running back that year. So I always kind of guard my heart against coach speak regarding the offensive line about how great they are. On the flip side, there is a reason for optimism, and that is watch for position changes, especially on that offensive line. 2 years ago, it was Matt Bockhorst who moved from right guard, where he was all ACC. They moved him to center because Mason Trotter and Ryan Rayburn were both out for the year. So they moved him to center, and we heard all this hype about how great he was doing at his new position. But when the season started, it went really poorly. He eventually moved back to guard and then got hurt. So that was a kind of the first and most brutal example of where position changes. They don't always go as well as you expect. In offensive line, it seems like you're playing offensive line, it's all the same. Clearly, it's not. 2021, similar situation. They moved Putnam from right guard to center. They moved. Sorry, that's 2022. They moved Putnam from right guard to center, and they moved Walker Parks, who's excellent at right tackle. They moved him to right guard. Putnam did all right. Didn't really take a step back in the new position, so that was a win. But Parks was excellent as a tackle and kind of struggled at right guard. Now, part of that is he did play through an ankle injury at times, but generally speaking, I think it's more. It would be more fair to blame that on the position change. So that's something you'd rather see. You'd rather hear. Not coming up. So if we look at this camp, here's a little bit about what we're seeing and hearing. So early talk is that Tristan Lee has he's the favorite, I guess you could say, to become the left tackle with Jordan McFadden going to the NFL, doing great in the NFL Combine, by the way. So if Tristan Lee could take that spot at left tackle, you can see the rest of the offensive line doesn't have to move around. Tate returns as a junior left guard. He had to start as a freshman back in 2021, and he's come a long way since then. So he'd really be kind of a veteran, a third-year starter at left guard. Putnam returns. He doesn't have to switch positions again. He's now got last year under his belt at center. He's a veteran. Parks, he's the guy that maybe you thought might move back to tackle, but with a year of right guard under his belt, you could expect a jump from him. And then Blake Miller, who started as a freshman, will likely start at right tackle. So this is really a best case scenario, and it's what we're hearing. But we've also heard that Tate, quote, could play or can play left tackle. Now, if Tate moves to left tackle, they have to plug in that spot. Maybe that's Mitchell Mays or whoever, or maybe that's the cascading effect again of everyone moving around. Does Putnam shift over to left guard and someone else start at center? But you really want to avoid all these guys moving around. Another thing we heard was Miller is taking reps at left tackle. If that's so he could become a versatile backup in need and switch around as needed, great. If that's so he could start at left tackle, we have to find someone new at right tackle. Again, that cascading effect of position changes is something to listen for. So far, it sounds like Lee is potentially ready. He's a 5-star out of Virginia, a redshirt sophomore, so this is his 3rd year in the program. So it'd be a big win for Clemson if he's ready to plug in and they don't have to shuffle people around. So listen for position changes, not just on the offensive line, but especially there. One thing to be careful about, don't expect freshmen to pop immediately. Sammy Watkins was immediately amazing. Mitch Hyatt was a great starter at left tackle right away. Those are kind of the exceptions. If you can think of other exceptions, leave them in the comments, but generally it takes a while. And when I say a while, I don't mean 3 years. I mean half a season, 3/4 of a season. Some good examples Wade Wood has. Last year he was great, but if you remember, he was on special teams pretty much only for a while, right? He had a block punt against Georgia Tech. It wasn't until later in the year where he had enough seasoning that coaches started putting him all over the field. He even played a little safety. So he really emerged late, and now he's a pretty, he's a starter this coming season as a true sophomore. Really the same story for Barrett Carter. When he was a freshman, he was a huge prospect out of Suwanee, Georgia, right where I grew up. There was a lot of hype for him, but he didn't make an impact right away. As the season wore on, he got through a lot of practices. He started getting some playing time and looking really good. And then as a sophomore, he's a star. So Justin Ross may be another great example. Through the first 10 games of his 2018, which was his freshman season, he averaged 49.5 yards per game. Good for a freshman, but not great. Over the last 5 games of that season, he averaged 101 yards. So freshmen can make an impact, but usually it's in the latter half of the year. 2 guys who are getting a lot of talk, and 2 guys I'm in particular very excited about, are Noble Johnson, a wide receiver, and Peter Woods on the defensive line. Both positions are areas of need potentially immediately, but kind of temper your expectations. They might make an impact this coming season, but maybe not, season opener or Labor Day at Duke, right? Maybe second half of the year. And I think they both stand to make an impact, but just a little later, so be patient. And lastly, kind of tying into that, injuries. That's always something to listen for, especially when they kind of clump in one position group. Last year it was wide receiver Bo Collins had their shoulder, Troy Solano hurt his knee, EJ Williams had a hematoma, and all of those guys, it lasted through the year, right? Bo Collins had a great start to the year, but that shoulder acted up. Solano was out for the whole year with the knee, and EJ, he had nagging injuries and just kind of performance struggles. He had a rough year, and obviously he's transferred now to Indiana. This year we're hearing about injuries on the wide receivers yet again. Bo Collins still recovering from the shoulder. Hopefully that's just a normal recovery, and he's completely 100%. But something to keep in mind. Stelato's still not back. Adam Randall had his other knee, not the one he tore, but the other knee worked on with the surgery, supposedly minor, but these are things to listen for. Clemson chose not to take a transfer, a wide receiver who can make an immediate impact. Instead, they took 2 local 3-stars, Brown and Kelly, who might take a little longer to develop. Maybe that's a good long-term strategy, but it does put a big premium on staying healthy at that position, so that's something to listen for. Thanks again for listening. Again, please subscribe. Would really appreciate it. Definitely leave your comments below.